So the first character we take is Thomas Gradgrind. Let us take Mr. Bounderby as well. Both Gradgrind and Bounderby, they are representation of the utilitarian philosophy of life, or you can say utilitarianism of Victorian England. They represent the idea of utilitarianism. They are the personifications of utilitarianism. Thomas Gradgrind, with all his emphasis on an education which should be rigidly based on facts and without emotion, he represents the importance of facts, figures, or statistics. Now, this theory of education, it is harmful. It is harmful for the minds of little children. In this case, the children are Tom, Lauza, Sissy, Bitzer. In fact, every student who is reading in his school, he becomes a victim of this utilitarian theory of education. If Gradgrind represents utilitarianism in education, Bounderby represents the utilitarian principle in business and industry. He is a banker, he is a manufacturer, he is an industrialist who is greedy, and his greed for money motivates him to uh, acquire an attitude of callousness towards his workers, because his workers, they have certain demands and he is not taking care of those demands. So his act of dismissing Stephen, it clearly shows that he is a hard-hearted person whose only aim is to earn profit from his business. He has nothing to do with the problems of human beings. So when we compare these two, we find that although both Gradgrind and Bounderby, they represent utilitarian principle, Bounderby is comparatively more hard-hearted or less compassionate as compared to Thomas Gradgrind, because we see that Thomas Gradgrind, he adopts Cecilia Jupe, because her father has abandoned her. So in adopting Cecilia, we find that Gradgrind has a soft heart. On the other hand, Bounderby is hard-hearted from the beginning to the end of the novel. In fact, he is so callous that he refuses to acknowledge his mother. In the novel he says that his mother has died, and we come to know that his mother visits him every year, and he says that he was left by his mother in his childhood, which is obviously a lie, and he does so to prove that he is a self-made man. We find that he is a bit selfish and self-centered man. So both these characters, Thomas Gradgrind and Bounderby, they represent a utilitarian principle of life. Next, you can take the character of Harthaus. Now, James Harthaus is another character who represents utilitarian principle of life. We come to know that he is a man who is bored with his life. He has been brought up on the theory of facts, and this Harthaus, In order to escape from his boredom, he tries to uh, romanticize or his life with Lausa. He knows that Lausa is a married woman, yet he keeps visiting her, although he has no real passion for her. So, Harthaus is in a sense cheating Lausa. He has no moral principles. Harthaus can be seen as a product of utilitarian theory who has no emotions left. If we if we discuss the character of Mrs. Sparsit, she is the household maid of Mr. Boundary. We find that she is proud of her aristocratic origin, and she never fails to mention her high uh, you can say high status or high connections whenever she gets an opportunity. We come to know that whenever she is alone, she makes strange faces towards Mr. Bounderby's portrait. She calls him a noodle. She is not happy with his marriage to Lausa, and she is working as a detective. And she, in fact, wants to prove Lausa immoral. So, if without any reason, just for the sake of jealousy, she wants to let Lausa down. So, such a person cannot brag of aristocratic origins. So, Mrs. Bassett, she is the personification of vanity and hypocrisy of upper class people. Then Tom is another character uh, who we know that Tom is his son of Mr. Gradgrind. He has also been brought on the theory of utilitarianism, but what he does after marriage of Lausa, he comes to stay with her and he misappropriates the money in the bank where he works. So it's a kind of dishonesty that you are working in a bank and you are misappropriating the funds of your employer. Now this dishonesty is a kind of ingratitude towards his sister, because his brother-in-law, Mr. Bounderby, he is the owner of the bank. So Tom is living with his sister Lausa and cheating Lausa's husband. So we can find that Tom represents the idea of dishonesty. He is symbol of dishonesty in human relations or family relations. If we talk about Bitzer represents the idea of self-interest. In this sense, he is similar to Mr. Bounderby. He has no theory of gratitude. He feels that this life is it's a kind of bargain. And if we talk about Lausa is also brought up on Gradgrind's theory of fact and utilitarianism. In fact, she marries Bounderby, which she later regrets because her father wants her to marry with Bounderby. At the same time, she returns to her father's home because she understands that their marriage is not working. So Lausa, in a sense, is different character. uh, you will find that there are two types of character in hard times. You can place the characters in two groups: one who represent virtue, another who represent evil or vices. Now Lausa, Stephen and Rachel, Cecilia Zoop, Mr. Sleary, they are some of the characters who represent the better side of humanity. If we categorize these characters as symbols and individuals, you will find that Mr. Bounderby, Thomas Gradgrin, Mrs. Bassett, they are the characters who are symbolic. They are symbols. On the other hand, Cecilia Ju, Tom, Bitzer, Harthaus, they not only represent some values or evils, they also have some individual qualities with them. Some people say that Dickens exaggerates his characters too much, that the characters are not real, they are exaggerated. Another group of critics charges Dickens that Dickens does not tell the reader about the inner life of his characters. We get only an outer appearance of the characters, what they speak. We never come to know what's going in their minds. Now, this characteristic of exaggeration and only outer appearance, it makes those characters caricatures. You know, caricatures, when you are given only the outer qualities or representative qualities of a character, and they are the characters, they are reduced to types, they are not individuals. So with all these charges of superficiality and exaggeration towards his characters, we have to keep in mind that uh, was Dickens was portraying some of the issues of his times, Victorian age, which we call, and in doing so, he could not give you only individual characters, because if when you make individual characters, you can limit yourself up to a single human being. When you make your character symbolic of something, you can apply to more numbers. So we can say that most of Dickens characters, they are individuals as well, with a life of their own. No doubt this symbolic characters, they give the novel a look of morality play or a moral fable. But even after that, we can see that characters, they are individuals as well. uh, every character has a disposition which Johnson called humor. So every character represents a particular kind of humor. No doubt they are personifications, but they have a vitality of their own. No two characters are alike in the novel. They are different from one another in some way or other. So you can say that all these characters, they live a life of their own. If we talk about the characterization, then we will say that in characterization you can put Dickens to Shakespeare, that he has given us such a large number of characters, and even after that he keeps them individuals. So have a recap of all the points discussed here, and ask if you have any question. Of course, you can ask it in tomorrow's class. Till then, you can think again about the characters. How many characters are there? Whether they are major characters or minor characters? Can we put them in a group of good characters or evil characters? Whether they are individuals or type, if they have any symbolic significance, and how these characters they help Dickens in presenting the message of the novel which he wanted to present. Okay, thank you. Thanks all.